Hello, this is the overview of the code or the demo for the code of Network. This is what was used throughout the lecture. I'm going to go ahead and open up Network v1. Let's go ahead and actually open up the source code for you though. And then I'm going to go ahead and open this project up. This is the project that was created without inheritance. We're going to go ahead and look at some of the basic inefficiencies, and then we can go from there. The reason I'm including this is just so you have the actual code if you want to look at the differences more readily yourself. Notice here, newsfeed isn't inherited from anything. I have two array lists, one for messages, one for photos. If I wanted to add a third type, I'd have to do another private variable for the third type and the fourth and the fifth and so on. Newsfeed is constructor, it creates each of the array lists for us. And it creates them empty. I have an add message post and an add photo post because I'm adding by the explicit type. Then when I want to print out, I actually have two for loops exactly the same, with the only difference being the message or the photo post. Overall, this code is fairly inefficient. It doesn't work well. You got duplicate coding. You've got additional classes. When I look at message post, okay, I see that there's all these values or variables defined and methods, and if you notice, they're almost identical with very little difference between the two. So here's message post and photo post. If I put them side by side, you'll see that the code is very similar. Minor differences between them. So basically, I'm creating duplicates of everything, more typing, more opportunity for a typo, more opportunity for somebody to do a file underscore name and likes here and like there, things like that, and you can actually run into problems and make your code less efficient. Let's go ahead and keep this up for a moment. This is the version 1. Version 2 is implemented with inheritance. So, notice the diagram, first of all, is very different. This diagram shows that newsfeed uses post. Both of these are inherited from post, where this one shows you that newsfeed uses message post and photo post. So already we see that there's differences. When we look at our newsfeed code, you can see here that newsfeed now only has a post type because we're taking care of the advantage of inheritance, where its polymorphic variables allow you to assign the children into the parent type. Doing an add post, and now when I do my show, because the methods are the same in post, I can use post.display and let it take care of everything. Now, you can get more complicated, and there's more examples and more intricate code where you then could have additional methods and make this a little more complicated, where this might not work. But again, you'll get the idea. We'll talk more about it in the next chapter. Notice here, extends post is the main difference. So message post extends post, which means all the variables and methods of the parent come into this one, and you can get to them in quotes depending on how they're described. Super author. So here, I'm going to go ahead and call the constructor of message post first. Then I'm going to add this one thing. So I'm going to call everything up in the parent and then take care of this next. This must be the first line or you'll receive a compiler error. Alright, let's see what else. Past that, this is the one thing that's different from this method, from this class, than its parental class. Okay? That's the only real differences. You'll see the code is a lot shorter, the implementation is a lot easier, because there was so much overlap between the two. With that, that's the end of the overview of the network. Hopefully this has been helpful. As always, email me your questions if you have any.